Story 1. I finally saw my sister for who she really is, and I'm ashamed. I treated my little sister like she was invisible for years. Then she saved me when I was at my lowest, and I realized the horrible truth about who I'd become. I'm 22. My sister just turned 19. When we were kids, we were inseparable, fighting over the remote one minute, teaming up to raid the cookie jar the next. She wasn't just my sister, she was my partner in crime, my built-in best friend who made every boring day feel like an adventure. But somewhere between middle school and high school, I let her slip away. I got wrapped up in my own world, new friends, new interests, new priorities. She became background noise in my life, just another person sharing the same roof. We'd exchange pleasantries at dinner, but that connection we once had? It vanished, and honestly, I was too self-absorbed to even notice. Here's the thing that kills me looking back. She never stopped trying. She'd surprise me with clothes she thought I'd like. She'd attempt conversations even when I gave her one-word answers. She'd rush to wish me happy birthday first thing in the morning, while I couldn't even remember hers until the day was half over. I wasn't cruel to her, I was just indifferent. And somehow, that feels worse. When I left for university, the distance between us went from emotional to physical. Weeks would pass without a single text, sometimes entire months. I convinced myself I was just busy, just focused on my future. The truth? I'd mentally filed her away as the kid sister and stopped making any effort whatsoever. Then a few weeks ago, everything shattered and rearranged itself in the span of 48 hours. I needed to handle some critical paperwork in another city, documents that couldn't wait, bureaucratic nightmares that required in-person visits to multiple government offices. The timing couldn't have been worse because I got hit with a brutal illness. I'm talking barely able to stand, everything hurts, completely not functional sick. That's when my sister did something that absolutely floored me. Without being asked, without hesitation, she took charge of everything. She went to those offices on my behalf, organized my chaotic pile of documents, navigated bureaucratic red tape that would have taken me days to figure out. She handled complicated administrative processes I didn't even understand, and she did it all with an efficiency that left me speechless. But she didn't stop there. She traveled with me for 2 full days to make sure everything got submitted properly, because I physically couldn't manage it alone. She was calm, capable, and completely there for me in a way I'd never been there for her. That's when the realization hit me like a freight train. In my mind, she was still the annoying little kid tagging along. But she's not a kid anymore. She's intelligent, responsible, incredibly capable, and more grown up than I'd given her credit for. She's become this amazing person, and I'd been too blind and self-centered to see it. The guilt hit me in waves. How had I spent years being distant from someone who never stopped caring? How had I taken her for granted while she kept trying to maintain our bond? I thanked her, but the words felt microscopic compared to what she deserved. Now I can't stop thinking about how badly I want to rebuild what we had. Actually, no. I want to build something better. I want to be the brother she deserves, not the distant, self-absorbed guy I've been. I want to take her out for a proper siblings day. Maybe buy her something special. Take her to a nice restaurant where we can actually talk. I love traveling, so maybe I could bring her along on a trip. Just the two of us, making new memories. But here's the problem. I'm completely awkward about it. I've never done any of this with her as adults. I don't know how to bridge this gap I created. I don't know how to show her I've changed without it feeling forced or strange. The edit to all of this. We actually live in the same house. I'm back home doing my master's degree in our city, which means I've been physically close to her this whole time while remaining emotionally distant. I sent her this entire post. She's probably at college or hanging with friends right now, but I'm hoping she sees it soon. Maybe when she comes home tonight, I just need her to know I finally see her, and I'm sorry it took this long. Story 2. I accidentally crashed a stranger's family BBQ and became their favorite uncle. I showed up to what I thought was my friend's family barbecue, helped grill burgers, played with the kids, and won a potato salad contest. There was just one problem. I had absolutely no idea who these people were. A couple summers back, my buddy Federico sent me a text about a casual family cookout happening at the park near the lake. I was exhausted from work and honestly wasn't in the mood, but something about the promise of cold drinks, sunshine, and grilled food convinced me to drag myself there. When I arrived, the scene was picture perfect. Music floating through the air, kids running around with popsicles melting down their hands, laughter echoing from every direction, and this golden retriever absolutely losing its mind, chasing its own tail. Before I could even find Federico, someone waved enthusiastically and shoved a cold drink into my hand, saying, "So glad you made it, buddy." I accepted it, thinking, wow, Federico's family really rolls out the welcome mat for friends. Within minutes, I was at the grill flipping burgers alongside this friendly guy who kept offering cooking tips like we'd been doing this together for years. An older woman kept calling me sweetheart and asking detailed questions about my job, which I answered while trying to seem like I totally belonged there. Everything felt surprisingly natural. 20 minutes in, I found myself helping set up folding chairs, distributing napkins, and genuinely enjoying the vibe. Then this adorable little girl handed me a plate loaded with food and declared, "You're my favorite new uncle." I laughed awkwardly and went with it, because, honestly, who crushes a kid's enthusiasm? That's when Federico texted, "Where are you?" I glanced at my phone, confused. I'm literally at the barbecue. What's he talking about? I texted back, "At the park by the lake, hanging with your family." His response made my stomach drop. "Bro, we're literally at the next picnic table over." Time froze. I looked around at all these smiling faces, these people waving at me, this woman insisting I try her famous potato salad, and the horrifying truth crashed down on me. I had absolutely no idea who any of these people were. I attempted an apology. Guys, I think I made a mistake," and the entire group burst into laughter. "Mistake? Nah, you've got great energy. Stay," one of the dads insisted. So, for another 20 minutes, I existed in this bizarre limbo where I was simultaneously the stranger who crashed their party and their adopted favorite guest. I kept grilling, tossed the frisbee around, and somehow became the unexpected star of their potato salad eating contest. The kids were absolutely convinced I was the cool uncle everyone wishes they had. Eventually, I made the awkward migration over to Federico's actual barbecue, covered in sweat and sporting mysterious mustard stains from the wrong grill. Federico just stared at me in disbelief. "Where the hell have you been?" I explained the entire situation. He laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair. Here's the absolute best part. That family still remembers me. I occasionally get tagged in their annual picnic photos. To them, I'm the legendary accidental guest who showed up, owned the grill, and stayed like he was meant to be there all along. Federico's friends now call me the BBQ Bandit. And honestly, I wear that title with pride. Story 3. I went to the beach to relax. I left as someone's unpaid babysitter. I went to the beach for a simple day of sun and relaxation. Instead, I rescued a runaway toddler, built sand fortresses, and chased down an inflatable flamingo like it was a national emergency. And I still don't know these people's names. Last July, my friend Luca and I headed to the beach with the most basic plan imaginable. Get some sun, swim a little, grab overpriced food, head home. Zero ambition, maximum relaxation. Naturally, the universe had other plans. We claimed a spot right next to what can only be described as a full-scale beach invasion. This family came prepared for war. Industrial umbrellas, enough chairs to seat a small army, coolers that could survive the apocalypse, every possible beach toy ever manufactured, and what I'm convinced was a backup generator hidden somewhere. The dad was constructing a sandcastle with the intensity of a medieval architect. The mom was running a one-woman sunscreen application station. The kids had the chaotic energy of golden retrievers who'd been fed pure espresso. Luca disappeared to grab drinks, and exactly 2 minutes later, everything went sideways. The smallest child, this tiny girl wearing floaties bigger than her entire body, started toddling toward the ocean like she'd received a divine calling. The dad was too invested in his sandcastle defenses. The mom was locked in combat with the middle child over why sand isn't a food group. Nobody noticed this miniature human drifting toward the Atlantic like a confused Roomba. So I got up, intercepted her before she went knee-deep into the waves, and she looked up at me, smiled, grabbed my finger, plopped down on my towel, and basically adopted me on the spot. The mom eventually noticed and instead of panicking said, "Oh, thank you. Can you watch her for just a second? We need to reorganize." A second. Sure. Absolutely. What's the worst that could happen? 10 minutes later, I was still there. Floaty Girl was presenting me with fistfuls of wet sand, like she'd discovered a new form of currency. The middle kid appeared and asked if I knew how to build a tunnel fort, handing me a plastic shovel like I'd just been hired as his construction assistant. Luca returned with drinks, saw me surrounded by children, and simply said, "I leave you alone for 5 minutes." The parents, meanwhile, had fully accepted me as part of their operational team. The mom handed me a juice pouch as payment. The dad waved at me like we were longtime colleagues. And the grandmother, I kid you not, told Luca, "He's wonderful with kids. You should keep him." I was in too deep to escape now. Then chaos escalated when a massive gust of wind decided to add drama. Their umbrella transformed into a medieval spear, launching across the beach. The dad screamed, sprinted after it, tripped halfway, took down an inflatable flamingo in the process, and the flamingo drifted into the ocean. The kids shrieked like they'd witnessed a national tragedy. Luca was dying laughing. The mom just sighed like this was her average Wednesday. And suddenly, I was the one assigned flamingo rescue duty. Me, a complete stranger to this family. But sure, why not? I was already the unpaid babysitter. I charged into the water, grabbed the flamingo, nearly fell twice, and emerged soaking wet while Floaty Girl applauded like I'd just won Olympic gold. Finally, the chaos subsided. The family packed up. The mom thanked me and handed me a bag of snacks for helping. The grandma kissed my cheek like I'd officially been inducted into the family tree. They left. Luca looked at me, shook his head, and said, "You realize you just worked a full shift for people we don't even know?" "Yes, Luca. Yes, I do. I went to the beach seeking relaxation. I left as someone's temporary uncle." Story 4. My marriage counselor called me arrogant for thinking my wife's affair had anything to do with me. I discovered my wife's 14-year-old affair 3 months ago. When we finally got into counseling with a highly recommended therapist, she told me I was arrogant and conceited for thinking the affair had anything to do with me. Now I'm questioning my entire reality. Discovery Day happened 3.5 months ago. My wife had been sexually involved with one of her friends 14 years ago. I'd suspected something wasn't right for years, but I never had confirmation until I finally sat her down and said I couldn't continue living with this uncertainty. I needed the truth. To her credit, when I asked, she told me everything. Every detail. How many times, where it happened, what positions they used, details that have been melting my brain ever since. She's been honest, genuinely remorseful, and visibly contrite. But here's where it gets worse. She also admitted to attempting sexual encounters with 2 other men before this affair. Both men declined because they knew me and had enough integrity not to cross that line. I actually knew about those attempts before discovering the actual affair. So, to summarize, she's betrayed me at least 3 times that I'm aware of. She clearly has unresolved issues from her past, and she's dropped multiple bombs on our marriage over the years. The reasons exist, but they're not relevant to my main question. 3 weeks ago, we started marriage counseling. This therapist comes highly recommended, so difficult to book that getting an appointment feels like winning a lottery. She has a stellar reputation, which is important context for what I'm about to share. I don't think what happened stems from incompetence. The first 2 sessions were brutal. We basically fought about who did what when it happened and why it happened. She blamed me for the state of our marriage, not for the affair itself, but for everything leading up to it. I found myself getting defensive because I genuinely don't see most of these issues the same way she does. The breaking point came when I expressed feeling like she was blaming me for the affair. The therapist stated clearly that the affair had nothing to do with me. It was about my wife's unresolved trauma from her past. I pushed back. I argued with the therapist. I said, if I'm truly as terrible a husband as my wife describes, if I actually did all the things she's accusing me of, then logically those would be reasons she'd need to escape the marriage. That's when the therapist said, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, so get ready. I'm about to make you angry. She proceeded to tell me I was being arrogant and conceited, that I felt like I had some kind of savior complex, like I was a prince swooping in to rescue my wife. Then came the part that genuinely hurt. She said my wife had and has a life completely outside of me and our marriage, that she's more than just my wife, and it was arrogant of me to think I had anything to do with her decision to have an affair. Then my wife asked the therapist if she should just divorce me, since I'd probably never get over the affair anyway. The therapist presented 2 options. Either I accept that the affair had nothing to do with me, work on myself, and try fixing the marriage, or I start working on the marriage issues directly. I asked, can I just heal from the infidelity first? It's only been 3 months since I found out. The therapist responded, has it really only been 3 months? It seems like you've known about this affair for 14 years. That confused me more than it angered me. I explained, no, I suspected something might have happened, but I never knew for certain. She hid it for 14 years. For me, the affair was revealed 3.5 months ago. This has been eating me alive for 2 days. If this therapist is as exceptional as everyone says, does that mean I'm actually the problem here? For context, I've never been physically abusive. I genuinely believe I've been a good husband and father. I handle household responsibilities, was present for my kids throughout their childhood, made time for personal matters. I'm the sole provider and make good money. I'm affectionate and very attentive. My acknowledged flaws. I can be stubborn, and I haven't validated her feelings and emotions as consistently as I should have. I'd appreciate any insight or perspective. For now, I've decided to follow the therapist's guidance and accept that maybe I'm not who I thought I was. I'm planning to seek individual therapy to work on my apparent flaws. But seriously, am I crazy here? The therapist told me I was arrogant for thinking my wife's affair had something to do with me. Does that make any sense?